Nils, I want to start with the top line of your resume.
All right.
Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, April of 2014. How emotional, how rewarding, how incredible is that moment, and then being able to say, I'm a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer?
Well, you know, I wouldn't put it at the top of the list, but it is a very admirable thing. I joined the E Street Band 30 years ago. I've been on the road 45 years on my own. And for years I'd watch, in particular, Clarence, who was a dear, dear friend, and Danny, of course, be very upset that the band wasn't in the Hall of Fame. And when Danny got ill on the Magic Tour, of course, I had hoped, because there's a bit of distance for me. I'm still the new guy in the band, 30 years, and a bit of perspective, because, you know, I've been out there hitting it pretty hard with myself and some other notable people, and I'm not even on their radar, and I get it. There's a bureaucracy to every business. Nevertheless, I felt that they missed the boat there, and when Danny got ill, I was hoping they'd figure it out, which they didn't. So it was a bittersweet but wonderful night. You know, my Jersey girl wife, Amy, from West Orange, we get to go to New York, and see beautiful friends, including other musicians, that gather at an event like that you don't see that much, because, you know, everyone's busy. Mm-hmm. So it was a beautiful night. It was great to play. And, of course, who else but Bruce to kind of speak about all of us. He should have been inducted as our singer, right? But whatever. Bureaucracy aside, it was a wonderful experience and night. Glad I got to share it with Amy. And, you know, one of the most powerful things about it was, because, you know, a lot of bands, they have a lot of bad blood. They can't even get them in the same room. They're past their prime. And I was like, wow, this is happening. And in 2 nights, I got a show. And we're hitting it as hard as we ever did. So that was very exciting to go, yeah, this is happening. Wish it happened earlier for Clarence and Danny. But we're in the prime of our playing, you know, irregardless of our ages. So that was very exciting.
I loved your speech because it was brief, and I didn't only love it because it was brief, but you mentioned your wife, you mentioned your son, you mentioned your parents and your brothers. You even took the time to mention the roadies and the touring band members, and you wrapped this all up in about 3 or 4 minutes, and you hit on something about every person. 210?
I'll take a high five on it. Well, it's funny because, you know, 6 weeks earlier when it happened, I was very suspicious. I said, wait a minute. Because, you know, honestly, Clarence, I would give him pep talks, and Max, too. We were kind of the school in the band, like, yeah, it's a badge of honor we're not in. Come see us play. Look me in the eye and say we don't belong. Because that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a spin I went with. And in particular, Clarence. Max had more of a sense of humor about it. But still, Clarence and Danny were really hurt. And I just, you know, said, guys, you know, it's a badge of honor. Of course you belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I still didn't really, I mean, I'm in the band, but, you know, it was like, and we went with that for a while. So now it's an honor to be in. Nevertheless, you know, it was a beautiful night, and, you know, it worked out great.
We mentioned 45 years in the business. If you go to nilslofgren.com, there's a 10-disc box set of your career that is coming out. I look at you right now and look at the shape that you're in, and I say, 45-year career. What did you start when you were in the first grade, second grade?
Yeah, well, I hit the road in '68 when I was 17, and I was very blessed. My band Grin went to L.A. looking for a record deal, and I used to sneak backstage and ask for advice, because in the mid-'60s, we all worshipped the Beatles and the Stones and Hendrix, but, you know, nobody did that in middle America, you know, Bethesda, Maryland, middle-class America. I mean, that wasn't a job. So one night I saw The Who and Jimi Hendrix the same night, 2 different shows in different parts of D.C., and I was possessed with the notion to be a rock musician. Ran away from home to Greenwich Village, started looking in the yellow pages, walking into record companies asking for work, a miserable exercise and success. Nevertheless, on our way to L.A., I'd sneak backstage and ask for advice, and Neil Young in particular let me sing songs, gave me a guitar to sing for him for a while. 4 shows over 2 nights. He really kind of embraced me as a young, struggling musician, and true to his word, he said, when you get to LA, look me up. I did, and he kept us under his wing, and his producer, David Briggs, moved me in, became our producer, mentor, big brother, and it was a huge, powerful thing. At 18 years of age, I did the After the Gold Rush album, which, I mean, that was just very lucky, you know, and as Grin went up and down and never had any big hit records, and then in my solo career, I've had this side career of working with other people, which I learned at a young age, and I didn't know this. A lot of solo artists like, no, my songs, I'm the boss. Every day of my life, I need that. I don't need that. I find when I work in other great bands, it's very exciting and refreshing because I don't have to play every solo. I don't have to sing every lead. I can sing harmony with beautiful singers. I can play different instruments, different colors and rhythms that arguably in my own shows I should play the solos. So I've always found it a very exciting, inspiring, footnote and side trip to my own music. It's all part of a musical journey that for me is very healthy. For instance, now when we're done with these shows in America, I'll go back to my own music. What's next? I don't know. But as I figure it out and start plowing through it, I'm kind of excited and refreshed because I've been away from it for a couple years, but I'm not musically rusty. I'm pretty sharp because of these couple years of work with these street bands. So it's all good.
And listening to interviews that you've done previously, you talk about how when you were that 17 or 18-year-old kid, whether it was Neil Young or Briggs, the advice you were given was be authentic.
Yeah, there was really no other game in town. And I guess in a strange way, the lack of commercial success. Traditionally, I remember, well, that's from Neil Young and Briggs in particular. It's like, of course you have to be authentic. Of course you have to be true to yourself. Whatever comes or doesn't come from that, if you do that, you should be able to make a living. Now, you might not be, a trillionaire and top 10 all your life, but, I was of that cloth anyway. But to have those guys imprinted on such a, young person was very powerful, and I still take that with me. And, it's like those guys are still there. Those days are like yesterday to me. So it was really powerful, good stuff.
I want to go back to the box set, and I'm beyond thrilled that you're holding a guitar in your hand. And by the way, we should mention, this is a Yankee-themed guitar. Fender has hooked up with Major League Baseball, so you can get this guitar and other Major League teams on Fender.com and MLB.com. How would a 17-year-old Nils Lofgren have liked to play something with his favorite sports team on the guitar like that?
Well, I grew up in D.C. area. I left Chicago when I was 8, so, the Redskins or, the Senators we had for a while. And, of course, the Washington Bullets. I wrote a song called Bullets Fever the year they won the championship. And I wrote it after the first victory in round 1, so it wasn't a fair weather thing.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, it's beautiful. As I grew up, I started playing a lot of basketball and football for quite a while until I got too beat up for that. But when I was younger, I played a lot of baseball, and the Yankees were one of my mythical teams, especially the old DiMaggio and, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, all that. So to have a classic guitar like that available, that's a beautiful thing. I'm sure a lot of fans are they doing it for a lot of teams, do you know?
They've done it for about a dozen teams, from what I can see online.
And apparently it's very reasonably priced. So
$7.99 according to the website for anybody who's interested.
And personally, my favorite guitar, and I have a lot of them. I've got 50 on the road with the E Street Band, and 30 are out and tuned every night. But the Strat is my favorite. It's got 5 positions. It's durable. You can kind of wrestle with it, and it fights back a little bit, so you don't have to be really gentle with it. You can kind of really lean into it, which is kind of what I like to do. So it's still my favorite guitar. It looks like a beautiful thing for a sports fan and a guitarist.
You take 50 guitars on tour?
Yeah, and there's about 33 out and tuned. Now, what happened in '99 when Steve came back into the band, Patty's playing rhythm, so now you got 4 guitar players. And, Bruce is a very authentic writer in many genres. So I thought to myself, 4 guitar players. Maybe I should go, because I'm kind of the guy who started on accordion when I was 5, studied classical, won some contests. So I thought I'd be the good guy to go take some lessons and learn some pedal steel, some dobro, some lap steel, 6-string banjo, some bottleneck guitar, and put these tools in the tool chest, if you will. Because, again, 4 guitar players, you don't need it. And so a lot of these instruments are versions of that. And because Bruce never follows a set list and never tells you what we're not going to play, you have to be ready for one of 400 songs, including signs out of the audience, which you have no idea what you're going to play. So we've got it down to about 33 instruments out and tuned and ready to go, and we just can't get it lower than that. And people it looks like a music store over there, but we all have a lot of stuff. And it just leads to those great improv shows, because he can just, all night long, you see him looking around like, what's the next better thing than what's on the set list? The set list is almost useless, but it's just a map of what he's thinking that after 30 years, I have a good way to read. Some of us, we look at it and go, oh, that's not happening.
I think there was a show recently in Nashville where a young girl was holding up a sign, Satisfaction, Stones, and he called her on stage. And from what I've read, it was a song that Springsteen has only played 2 or 3 times, and he turned around to you guys and said, let's get ready to go. And then he even made the young girl share your microphone.
Yeah, he said, go over and sing on Nils's microphone. So, I lowered the mic for her, and she didn't need a lot of prompting. It's funny, the other night early in the show, he brings 3 girls up to sing, and he puts them over on my mic, and they're sitting there like with their phones. It's like a photo op, and he's looking at them sing, and I finally got up in their faces and sing, sing. You could hold your phone on video and sing. It's just amazing that, because I came up in an era where no cell phones, and I need them and I use them. But it's funny because people are so worried about, notating the moment with a phone or a picture. Sometimes they forget to be in the moment. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you're not up here as a photographer. He invited you up to sing. He said it from the audience, come down and sing. And they forgot to sing. I kept trying to remind them that I just gave up, said have fun.
I've been at shows, and you're exactly right. I've been in the pit. I've been at smaller venues where you're 50 feet from the stage, and the lead singer is right there, and everybody has the phone out, and they're not absorbing and saturating that beautiful moment that is in front of you.
And I will say, a lot of Bruce fans in the pit, they go through extraordinary lengths to get there. I'll realize, I'll see the good ones have the phone, but they're looking at him. They're taking in the moment. Other people, they're looking at the phone. Like, no. Just hope you get it. It's on. Move it around, but look at the singer because he's there for you.
Nils, I'm going to ask you if I can be Bruce Springsteen for a moment, and I'm holding up a card that says Yankee Stadium on it because you have a song, Yankee Stadium, inspired by your wife Amy. I was wondering if you could tell us about the song, and then if your voice will allow, give us a little bit of the song.
A little clip of it? Yeah, this is some bare bones stuff here, but what happened was when they were going to shut down Yankee Stadium, Amy had mentioned quite often, and then she got into a lot of detail. She grew up in West Orange, kind of a ghetto there. And, 4 girls, mom alone, the dad took off. It was a tragic story. And it was a pretty rough existence, and to her, the mom, who was like played tennis, and real Ms. woman, and kind of ahead of her time, raising 4 girls, would take them all to Yankee Stadium pretty regularly. And to Amy, it was like going to the, Wonderland. See, the sights, the sounds, the smells. She always talked about the beautiful light on the night games before the sun went down. I never quite understood till I went there. But she went quite a bit, and it was just like extraordinary, winning the lottery, evening out till you go back to your pretty rough life in West Orange, and she always spoke so much about it. So I thought, let's write a song together through her eyes, because I'm a fan, and actually I used to collect baseball cards from the local team and the Yankees, and were one of my favorites. But I just married her experiences with her family and her mom, which was all biographical, and this very powerful, visceral description she had of the place, and her concept was everyone's beautiful. All of a sudden, everything, and everyone takes on this magical quality. So we did that with the song. It's on NilsLofgren.com. It's free. You can go check it out. It's going to be on my box set. We did it in Arizona, where I live, and got a great drummer locally. I played all the other parts. We got the Phoenix Boys Choir to come and bring that childlike quality that kind of I got through talking to Amy about it. But let me see if I can fire up this amp I just picked up here. Every soul who entered here, raise a glass and shed a tear. Beauty in every face appears. Hope and love's alive tonight. Yankee Stadium, in Yankee Stadium, in Yankee Stadium. Everyone is beautiful. Everyone is beautiful. Yankee Stadium. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
That's just the last verse, and again, it was really fun to marry the last 100 years of the Yankees and some great players into Amy's, autobiographical tale about it.
I also want to ask you about a couple of other lyrics, not the lyrics that you just sung, but you start out, "Sweet Amy cheers in wide-eyed wonder," which obviously is an ode to your wife. But this verse hit me. "I squeeze my girl's hand, sit side on side, the Bronx twilight and her face collide, a picture so sweet I could cry." a joy and time stands still. That's poetry.
Thanks,
right there.
man. Well, you know what? Again, she talks like it was like the Wizard of Oz, but discovering some beautiful wonderland. And so what I did was I just took the best of all the worlds and my take on the Yankees, and as a sports fan mixed with her story and the ups and downs of a rough life and the beauty this place brought for her, and put it all together. But thanks, yeah, I was proud of it.
You mentioned Ruth and DiMaggio in the song. If I'm doing a Yankee Mount Rushmore, it's Ruth, DiMaggio, Mantle, and Gehrig.
Sure.
Do you have, so that's yours, but now I'm going to flip it on you. I want your music Mount Rushmore. I'm giving you 4 heads that you can put up there. Who's your music Mount Rushmore?
Oh, well, that's not enough.
I know. That's why that'll be my toughest question of the morning, probably.
Yeah, and it'll be the wrong answer. Well, I was blessed coming up with. I will say that as far as writers out there, you got talking about writers now. I think you got Bruce Springsteen and Neil Young, Bob Dylan, really. And then there's great writers that don't have maybe the body of work, like Sting, Peter Gabriel, guys like that. And as a guitar player, to me, Jimi Hendrix was by far the greatest. Jeff Beck, those two were off on their own. And of course, Keith Richards, Pete Townsend with the rhythm thematic stuff, and all the Kings, B.B., Albert. Albert probably had the greatest tone. And, Clapton, Jimmy Page. To me, Jeff Beck's the greatest living guitar player now that we lost Jimmy. My band Grin got to open 3 shows for him. One was on my 19th birthday in Ventura, California, and I got to knock on the Winnebago door and look him in the eye and shake his hand and thank him, and then walk away before I overstayed my welcome. But those are some of the greats. I mean, Beatles and Stones is how I fell in love with all of it. I was a classical accordionist. And some of it was a function of being 9, 10, 11. People would play Chuck Berry or Jerry Lee Lewis, and I just look at it as a square classical musician, accordionist, and go, well, that's CFG, it's too simple, I don't get it. Then the Beatles brought in some extra chords and harmonies. Between being 12 or 13, I fell in love with it all through them and the Stones, discovered Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Richard, all the old greats. I got to see Muddy Waters in the same club I met Neil Young, in the same room I snuck in. And Muddy was there. They were playing cards, and him and his band. These guys were all 60-something at the time, in the 60s, I think. And they'd take the cards really up high, and they'd throw them as hard as they could, and go, "Hit me!" And they all did it. And I snuck in the corner for about 20 minutes, and then Muddy Waters saw me. I said, "Mr. Waters, I got tickets to both your shows," which was great because they used to do 2 shows because there was only 200 seats. "Can I just sit here and watch you play cards?" And he looked at me funny, and yeah, all right, kid. And I just kept shut, and I got to. But then you go see him play in a 200-seat, and it was a full balcony, right? So there was only 100 seats on the bottom. So even the back row, you were right on top of people like that. And to see people like Muddy Waters, Neil Young, a lot of great, I just was lucky to come up in the 60s and see all those great artists. So I'm leaving out a lot. Ray Charles, of course, Sam Cooke. I mean, 4 is not enough.
You covered your bases. I know. It was a tough question to ask you to narrow it down. I took the easy way out on the Yankee
You can
one.
pick the wrong 4 if you have prioritized.